and welcome back to the Hero Report. My name is Ari Cohen from the University of Nebraska. With me, as always, is Matt Langdon, and this week we're pleased to welcome Chad Ellsworth with us. Matt, you want to do a quick introduction and say hello and all that good stuff?
I will. I'm back again from the Hero Construction Company. Very pleased to announce that I had the Kickstarter project funded today. And so this week we have Chad Ellsworth from Building Heroes, and I came across Chad probably, it's over a year, easily over a year ago, with his site where he was really doing a great job of analyzing and expanding the paper, The Banality of Heroism, that Zeno Franco and Phil Zimbardo wrote. And we've just been in contact ever since, so we thought he would be a good guy to have come on today. Chad, can you introduce yourself and kind of introduce what Building Heroes is all about as well?
Sure. Well, thanks, Ari. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I kind of came at this from a little different perspective than I think many people did. So I guess professionally, I'm in higher education. I have a master's degree in student affairs. Worked in the fraternity and sorority advising world for about 8 or 9 years total, 2 at the University of Maryland and then 7 here at the University of Minnesota. And I was very passionate and still am very passionate about anti-hazing, and had served a nonprofit called hazingprevention.org and working with preventing hazing in college environments. And as a result of that, I was asked to do a couple of presentations at a conference. One was why not to haze, and one was what to do instead, was the guidance that I was given. And at the time, I was reading Zimbardo's book, The Lucifer Effect, and was absolutely moved by it because it connected very closely with my own experience in hazing situations. And I was really fascinated by this idea. If we can create social situations and situational forces that encourage average people to do really awful things, could we then also create forces and situations that would empower people to do really amazing and really heroic things? And so I really used that book as a launch pad for these 2 presentations. The first one I called Beyond Hazing, really encouraging people to do challenging things with their organizations that really gave skills and gave capacity to the people in the organizations, but without stepping over the line and really putting them in harm's way. And then the second presentation was called Building Heroes. And it was one of those moments after I gave the presentation that I actually stopped in the middle of the room and I asked the people in the room, I'm like, do you see this? Do you feel this? And they're like, yeah. And it's just like, I didn't realize how powerful it was what I was talking about. And so I finished up the presentation and I was like, wow, I need to do something with this. And so really, I mean, this Building Heroes thing that I've been a part of has been as much about my journey as the journey that I hope to share with other people. And so, it was kind of like, I don't really know what to do with this. Started writing a blog and kept kind of honing the curriculum, and wanted to do something with it. So that's kind of the long and short of how I got into it. And I've really been trying to share my journey through the blog, but also keep developing this curriculum that I think Dr. Zimbardo, one of the things that he wanted to do was create these situations that really equipped people, and I think that's a fascinating idea, and it's something that I wanted to explore, and something that now I'm finally ready. I think we've got a pretty sound curriculum and ready to take on the road.
So your website is buildingheroes.org, where you do a lot of writing on obviously hazing and applications in the college field, but you're also really good at curating hero stories from around the place. What does it look like now? So obviously you started off with a talk. I know a couple of weeks ago you had your first sort of pre-launch of the program. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Mm-hmm. So kind of through this, exploring this idea of heroism, I've been reading a lot of different things and have, of course, encountered Joseph Campbell, and myself being a very kind of spiritually minded person in a broad sense, his work really resonated with me. And the other thing is that I have a background in leadership education. I teach in the leadership minor here at the University of Minnesota. And when I looked at the arc of the hero's journey, I think it lends itself really well to the experience that people have in terms of either trying to champion a cause, a social cause, no matter how small or large that may be, something in their local community, all the way up to something that's facing the world. Or somebody like my experience as an undergraduate, trying to tackle hazing in my organization, kind of the arc that I went through and the journey that I had as a part of that. So I really started building the curriculum around that journey, because I think it's something that we all experience when we come to hard moments in life. And when we go through that journey and prepare ourselves through the tests, we learn who our allies are, and we confront our fears and ultimately become that best version of ourselves and follow our passion, so to speak. I think that's when we're able to do really amazing things. And that's kind of what the program itself is meant to accomplish, is give people the experience of the hero's journey and really build their capacity to be able to do amazing things, because they've already done some very challenging things in the safe setting. So right now we're very much in kind of pre-launch phase. We're talking to different campuses about coming in and doing the program, and certainly have some folks that are interested. And I've been talking on the side, being in the leadership education realm with some leadership education friends of mine, and I'm really encouraged that when I tell them about this, their response is, "There's nothing like this." So it's good to know that I'm doing something that's different than what's out there, because it's something that definitely feeds my passion and fills me up, and that I hope I can share with other people.
And so the goal is really to make it experiential, right? They're learning through experiencing these different things. Is it an overnight program you're looking for?
In an ideal world, yes. When I started building the curriculum, what I wanted to do was just build it how I would want to do it in an ideal world. And understanding, as someone that used to book programs and bring people in to do education with the students I worked with, I know that sometimes you have different logistics and things in mind. But in an ideal world, I would love to do something that would be overnight, at multiple hours and very heavily experiential. I think when you look at the leadership journey and the hero's journey in terms of crossing the threshold, going from the ordinary world into the underworld or the dark world, the unknown, and then, after the ordeal, coming back up into the ordinary world, returning to light, so to speak. There are some really interesting things that you can do from a dramatic kind of setting with, doing things at night and doing things in early morning, that I think it plays real nice with that. But given the experiential nature, despite the fact that I teach a course here, I don't like to lecture. And so for me to be able to facilitate an experience is much more rewarding. And I'd rather not talk. So the more that I can, give a very short introduction, give people an opportunity to experience and practice, and then help them understand, how that applies to what they might do later on, I think is really powerful, because then it's something that they own. It's not just something that I'm telling them. It's something that they experience for themselves.
Chad, I'm really interested in this idea of doing something that provides them with an experience. I wonder if you could give us sort of an example, something that we can kind of have in our heads when we're talking about this. What would be an example of some sort of experiential learning around the hero's journey concept?
Sure. So I took Dr. Zimbardo's work, and on my website, those are referred to as the heroic arts. I think those are skills and capacities that people need to have. And when you look at Joseph Campbell's journey, He refers to tests and allies and enemies. And that's kind of where those arts come in, so to speak. And some of those, when you think about the ability to look at situations and question what might be going wrong, what the opportunities may be, what kind of danger is inherent in a situation, or looking at ideas of courage and what it means to be able to speak what's in your mind and what's in your heart. There are some of those that are definitely reflective, where people are going to be asked to spend some time reflecting. There's others in terms of building capacity and actually practicing skills. So, for example, if you're going to champion a social cause or take a stand against an issue, you need practice being able to address that and verbalize it out loud. It's not something that, I certainly, from my experience as undergrad, I really regret the way that I tried to address hazing in my chapter. I think, I tried to be, one of my posts allude to this, but I tried to be the preacher on the sidewalk, just telling them how wrong it was and not really trying to address it in a way that might be more effective. For me, it's more important to talk about, whether it's right or wrong. But I think in terms of one of the actual activities, the one that I'm most excited about, speaking of the ordeal, this one is one that it kind of came to me, and it was kind of an aha moment for me. But the ordeal and the journey is kind of the culmination where all the skills come together, and it's something that's challenging, and it's important for the hero to overcome. And it's kind of a battle to be won, so to speak. And thinking about whether it's a social issue or a challenge that an organization is facing, knowing that people have to have the ability to address it, giving them an opportunity in a very safe way to repeatedly, with feedback and coaching, address it with multiple people and practice giving their spiel, so to speak. Getting up and standing and talking about something that they really care about, and then responding to another person. But the ordeal is structured in that there is an inner circle and an outer circle facing each other, and the person on the inner circle will give voice to what they care about and what they're passionate about. And the person on the outer circle's job is to be the challenger. How would you respond if you weren't necessarily on board with that, if you were a naysayer, if you were somebody that didn't believe that the cause would be able to be tackled, or if you were a believer in the opposite of the cause. And then, continuously rotating those groups so the circles kind of spin. And so that by the end of it, you'll have multiple experiences addressing your passion, your cause, the issue that you're concerned about with multiple different people and getting feedback because different personalities, different styles, by the end they should have a really good sense of how I can convey this passion and definitely demonstrate that capacity.
It's actually it's a really timely thing you're doing, and I'm sure that you've been thinking about this over the past week or so as all the invisible children viral video backlash has come up, and as the guy behind the video, Jason Russell, has had this breakdown, I don't know how else to say it, in response to both how viral the video went and how people responded to him personally. Imagine if he had had the kind of resources you're talking about prior to filming and distributing the video, right? It's obviously an issue, child soldiers, that he cares about a great deal. He wants to influence people. He wants to make an impact on their lives, but the way that he does it, it really goes badly in some sense. Obviously he raised a lot of awareness, but in a way that I think he, if he thought about it again, would not have wanted to do it. And what you're suggesting is that you're providing essentially this opportunity to kind of field test how to make your case, how to talk about an issue in a way that's both persuasive to people, but that also gives you some insight into how they might react or respond to the things that you're talking about, so that when you actually go out and do this in the real world, you have that already in your mind, and you can, in some sense, craft the way that you speak about the issue to get the best result that's possible. I think that's incredibly important and really timely right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, you know, and I've said this before, but this journey has been as much about my own journey, you know, and things that I've learned and things that I'm still learning. But you know, wanting to, you know, help others, you know, and kind of collectively go through this process of, you know, what does it mean to be a hero? Because I'm not there. I'm not, you know, I haven't arrived as a hero, so to speak. But you know, I'm committed to the journey, and I think, you know, that's something that is really important, and I always want to make sure that I keep sight of, and that it is something that all of us can do, and it's, you know, I want it to be accessible. You know, I think, you know, we lift people up and they somehow become otherworldly, you know, some sort of fantastic being with a cape and fighting crime. But being able to realize that, you know, this is a journey, and you know, I want to prepare myself to whatever degree to act. You know, and part of that preparation is building capacity, which involves practicing multiple settings, reflecting on those experiences, and learning from those experiences. And so to the degree that that can be provided in a safe environment, so to speak, the more powerful and more learning, I think, can happen.
Yeah. I wonder if you can talk, too, about, I mean, you've mentioned hazing a number of times, and that was sort of the entrance for you into all of this. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about your perspective on hazing, and also how you see this response to hazing as somehow connected to heroism and the heroic journey.
Yeah. For me, I see heroism and hazing, or I should say training, you know, oneself to be a hero, and hazing on opposite ends of the same spectrum. I think, you know, one of the things that I've asked students a lot of times is if you could have the things that you want from hazing, you know, and we're obviously throwing out the people that have negative reasons for wanting to do it, but the people who go along with it because they want bonding, they want to go through something challenging but meaningful, they want to go through something that'll make them feel stronger, you know, all those things. And I asked them if you could have those things without putting anyone in harm's way, without putting somebody else down emotionally, you know, hurting them physically, whatever those things are, would you do it? And the answer is always a resounding yes. You know, I think, you know, people go through it, people want to do it because they want something that's challenging and meaningful and that makes them feel like they've accomplished something. And so for me, you know, that's why the two presentations, you know, Beyond Hazing and then Building Heroes, kind of came about, as I really felt like if you could do all that stuff, you know, a really challenging but meaningful experience that's going to empower people to be stronger people, if you could do all that without the negative, you're really, in a sense, you know, to use Dr. Zimbardo's language, I mean, that is building heroes. It is creating heroes. You know, it's giving people an amazing gift to be able to do something very powerful with their lives without tearing them down. So I think there's tremendous power in that idea. And so for me, like I said, I see it on opposite ends of the spectrum. You know, and that some of the goals are parallel, but able to take out kind of the negative, so to speak.
That's really interesting, Chad. That's not at all what I thought you would say. I think that's just fascinating. That's why I like doing these podcasts so much, because I thought that you would talk about sort of responding to hazing and how people would sort of, you know, steel themselves to say the unpopular thing, which is sort of what you did in your own case. But instead, what you're talking about is the experience that people go through, and I think that's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that at all. That is that you want to have some sort of personal challenge or difficulty, and that there's a sort of character building aspect to it, and so on. And all these people, you know, in the organization have gone through it in the past, and now it's your sort of turn to. I had not considered that at all. So that's really fascinating. And I never would have characterized that, I don't think, as a sort of heroic journey. I just don't think that I would have had the ability to see that in that way. So that's really interesting.
Well, my master's research was actually on hazing, and it's one of the things that fascinated me in that, when you look at the broadest sense of the hero's journey, the separation, the initiation, and the return, in hazing, what normally happens is the new members are separated. They're made to feel like they're no longer part of their original lives, but they're still not part fully of the new organization that they're joining. They go through something really challenging, really difficult, and they return as fully accepted members, and there's a new identity there. And so if you look at the three main components of the hero's journey, it does parallel it very closely in that sense. And I think that's why, as an issue in higher education and high school, junior high, even I've heard, certainly the military and professional sports, everywhere that hazing happens, it's persisted because it does, in a very dysfunctional way, it does fulfill some needs that people have to have meaningful rites of passage. And so for me, it's always been something that's been a thorn in the back of my head in that, how can we do this in a positive way? Because rites of passage are important.
That's what I was just going to say. It's a rite of passage. It's very primal. And that wasn't the answer I was expecting either about the hazing and heroism in hazing. But it's fascinating, and taking the position of the foreigner looking at America here, there's a real lack of a rite of passage for American kids. The college experience should be a separation experience, but it's so infrequently is that. It's too common for those young adults to be still having their parents do their laundry on weekends, or there's not enough of a separation, and I think that really harms the people participating in it, because they don't come out the end as a different person. So we have a lot of 25-year-olds still essentially operating like they're in high school, and there's a real need for that experience. And so I was going to ask you earlier if you're aiming to offer this program just for the Greek community, or whether it's a college-wide approach, because I think this would be a huge difference maker for students to go through, to experience their college life as a journey, rather than just 4 years or 6 years of partying, going to classes and not changing. They would come out of this as a much more hireable person as well, I think, which is a big concern for anyone going into college at the moment, is come out with a degree or a master's degree and you still can't get a job. And so much of it is because they haven't changed, right?
Yeah, I think, that's one of the things that I think has been really fascinating as I've been on this journey myself. This whole thing started with 2 one-hour presentations. It was a pretty minimal thing, and one of those entire hours was about hazing. And I've been working with a company called Rise Partnerships, and the CEO, Dan Rona, and I, as Dan and I have been kind of building this curriculum out and really feeding off each other in terms of the ideas of what this looks like. I feel really blessed in what this actually has the power to do. I feel really fortunate that I found something that's very meaningful to me, and it seems to have a lot of power for others. And I'm starting to realize the magnitude of that power. When I started out, this was specifically about addressing hazing. It was about Greek organizations, and it had a pretty narrow focus. But as time has gone on, starting to look at this, that cause, that call to adventure can be anything. It can be, the problem across the world that you want to in some way help address. It can be the problem within your student organization on your campus. So no matter how big or small, there's certainly a call to adventure and a journey that we all go through when we.
Did we lose Chad?
We just lost Chad.
I see. Okay. Hope he'll come back. One of the things that so interests me is this. I wonder how important suffering is to this.
Right.
I sort of want to push him on this because so many rites of passage have suffering at their some measure of suffering, maybe at their center or in some way related.
If you think of the tribal rites of passage, that they starved or they had to battle against, or hunt something that was really beyond generally their
right.
comfort level.
And I, of course, take this all the way back to Odysseus, right? I mean,
right.
We're not talking about a new kind of heroism here. We're talking about the heroism of the sufferer who makes it out again at the end, having undergone this tribulation. And I wonder how Chad's program gets around that.
Creates that, yeah. Yep.
I'm sad that he dropped off. I hope that he'll come back. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to invite him again.
I was just going to say, yeah. Oh, he's just emailed me and said he's had a blue screen of death on his computer.
Oh, that's too bad.
So he's rebooting.
Okay. Well, I do hope he'll be able to make it back. And hopefully this won't require too much editing. We can just take out this,
this chunk, yep.
And bring it back.
Might need to ask him the question again that he was answering.
Yeah, do you remember what it was?
No.
Oh dear.
Well, no, I think he was answering about whether this was being offered to...
Yeah, right. Whether it was your question about whether it was just in the Greek community or...
yeah, and it sounds like he is offering it. He's expanding it. Right. It's. I need to ask him also what kind of response he gets from college students, because it's not airy-fairy stuff, but it's pretty high concept stuff to get them to think of themselves really on a journey.
Yeah.
So it's good that he left my phone going off.
Oh, did it? I didn't know what that was.
Oh, you didn't hear it?
I heard a doo-doo, but I didn't know what that was.
Okay. So yeah, I'm curious.
Oh, he's back.
Okay.
Welcome back. Oh, well, there's a professional photo.
I'm back.
Okay.
There he is.
All right.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's no problem. We're gonna try to pick up.
I'm gonna ask the question again on whether you're offering this to all college students.
Yeah. So where I was going is that I think part of the power of this is that having the opportunity to address any social issue, no matter how local or how global it might be, and really looking at, again, drawing on my leadership educator roots with the social change model, looking at an individual core values, commitment, congruence with one's personal values, working as part of a group and part of a community to then create social change. I think that has been a very powerful aha for me in that this can be overlaid into any type of issue. And so as Dan and I have been talking through how this looks with RISE, I think absolutely there's the potential to offer it beyond Greek students. I think there's kind of a natural niche because of my professional background, but we realized very quickly that this can be much larger than that. Right.
So the other thing that I'm curious about, Chad, is the reaction that you get from college students, because this is fairly high concept stuff, and college students are pretty famous for not wanting to have anything to do with high concept stuff.
Should I stick up for my students here, or should I wait?
You should wait.
All right.
What are the reactions initially when you're talking to college students about this stuff? Do they really get it straight away that they are on this sort of experience?
I think, Ari, I will defend our populations. So I think one of the things that I'm very careful about, one, I would never do this for a group that's mandated to be there. I think if you force buds to be in the chairs, they're not going to be in the right frame of mind to experience and to think about a journey that I think has such roots in who a person is and who they want to be. I mean, that's a very deep, introspective, kind of core experience, and you can't really force it on people. When I've done, pieces of the program with college students, I'm very quick in that I want to disarm the idea of hero, because I think immediately they start to think about Spider-Man, Batman, Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., all these amazing people, and they think, well, I'll never reach to that. Or even the ones who think they can reach to that think it's a long ways off. And so I want to, really talk about what it means to be a hero, and the hero's journey arc from Campbell, as well as Dr. Zimbardo's work, I think lends itself to really making hero an accessible thing. It makes it something that anybody can be. It's a way of life. It's a commitment to a journey, not necessarily that tomorrow you're going to wake up and say, yep, doggone it, I'm a hero. But it's a commitment to a journey and to preparation and to training. And when I've presented this, even first and second year students, when they realize that this is a really accessible thing, like, yeah, I can commit to being this great thing, and I can really connect with my core purpose and who I want to be, because I think that's a very existential thing that college students, looking, again, my training, leadership, student development theory, knowing that students at college are actually going through a really critical time of, who do I want to be? Who am I in the world? If you can present this in an accessible way and allow them to explore that idea, I found that they really grab it. Because they're like, wow, you're right, I'm not just this person my parents want me to be, or who my friends want me to be, or who the world and society expect me to be. I have this amazing potential to really create my own story and to be the kind of person I want to be. And so I think, when I've presented pieces of this, with students, they really grab onto that. I think they find the power in it.
Chad, I want to push you for just a minute, because I can't go 40 minutes without talking about the ancient Greeks, as people who've listened to the previous podcasts certainly know. So when I heard you talking about hazing and that connection that I thought was so interesting, one of the things that sort of stuck out to me was that, this is the kind of heroism that you're talking about is, of course, a very old kind of heroism, as all these sorts of rites of passage and so on are quite old. And it got me thinking about Odysseus, right, who goes through that classic hero's journey. And the characteristic of Odysseus that is sort of the thing that is heroic about him is the way he endures suffering, right? Or at least that's my reading of the Odyssey. And in that endurance, he's able to accomplish something particularly noteworthy. Of course, hazing has that suffering component to it, but what you're proposing, it doesn't, right? It wants to move around the idea of suffering while still keeping this meaningful rite of passage in some sense, or difficult journey, or whatever. But I wonder if you can so easily do that. I wonder if it's possible to take the suffering hero, remove the suffering, and still have heroism.
I think there's a very subtle but profound difference, especially when you talk about the suffering. For me, I think one of the key pieces of heroism is sacrifice. It's about giving yourself over to something larger than yourself. And no matter how hard you try, and no matter how hard hazing tries to do this, you can't demand sacrifice. It doesn't have the same effect. Odysseus could have chosen, just thrown up his arms and said, you know what, I quit. But he chose to persist through it. And he knew that there was a larger purpose. And unfortunately with hazing, a lot of times that larger purpose isn't there. It's, you do this because everyone else did it. You do this because we just want to have fun with you and, kind of make sport of you. You do this because, it's tradition. You do this because we think it'll make you stronger. We don't really have any evidence of that, but we think it will. And sacrifice is about making a conscious choice to do that. It's not demanded from you. It's not, kind of taken from you. It's something that you volunteer to give over, And I think to make it meaningful, it has to be something that you care about and that you very intentionally and planfully do. Too often, hazing is something that just happens. It's sprung on you. My experience was we'd be woken up all of a sudden at 3 or 4 in the morning and told we had to do whatever. There was no careful consideration of what we were doing. And so I think there is a pretty subtle difference that, to undergo the hero's journey, it can never be demanded from you. You have to choose to go through that. And I think there's plenty of suffering in the hero's journey. You might lose friends. The world might think you're funny and goofy and out of your mind. I think there's plenty of suffering and plenty of challenge, and you have to intentionally and purposely rise to that and to decide you want to push through it. Because if not, you're choosing to be a part of that ordinary world.
Mm-hmm. Well, Matt, I think we're at that point where we have to remember to ask the question of our guests that we routinely forget to ask of our guests. So before we go any further and then forget, Matt, would you like to do the honor?
I can. So, Chad, it's a bit of an overestimation that we always forget, but I think we've only asked the question twice, so we've asked it 50% of the times. Who is your hero and why?
Sure. Well, I've talked a lot about hazing, and the first person that always comes to my mind. So to give a very brief version of my story, so I decided to challenge hazing in my fraternity, and it went poorly. And at about 1 o'clock in the morning, I decided that I needed to move out in the middle of the night because I wasn't safe. The people that were members of the organization wanted to remove my membership. Some of them said some really nasty things about me. And so I didn't feel safe sleeping there that night. And so I went back to my room at 1 in the morning, and I called my best friend, Chris Wegner. And all I told Chris was I need to move out right now. And he was my friend. I talked to him about what I was trying to do in terms of addressing the culture of hazing. And he knew that, things had gone really poorly, to put it mildly, I guess. And so Chris left his house about 1 in the morning, and, he borrowed his roommate's truck. And as he was doing that, Joe, his roommate, Joe Cope, said, "What do you need the truck for?" And he told him, and Joe was like, "Can I come?" And so they were leaving the house, and their third roommate, Trevor Johnson, said, "Where are you guys going?" They said, "Well, Chad needs to move out right now." And Trevor said, "Can I come?" And so those three guys in the middle of the night, about 1:30 in the morning by that point, went into a pretty hostile situation. There were 50 guys that were really upset with me, and I've heard that some of them said some nasty things to my friends, but these three guys went into that situation, for no reason other than that I was their friend, and, moved me out in the middle of the night. And to me that meant a lot, and it showed me kind of what fraternity, when it's done well and when it's done right, what it looks like. And it also showed me what it means to really be there for somebody else and to really care about them. So, Chris especially, because he was there throughout, but, Joe and Trevor would certainly be a part of that as well. I always felt throughout my life since that point that everything that I've tried to do in terms of building others' capacity and leadership and addressing hazing and all those things that I've done professionally have been my way of kind of paying it forward, because I have a tremendous debt to those guys.
Great answer. That's another personal one. It's going to be interesting to see how they fall.
I was going to say Batman, but, Batman's my superhero choice.
Nice. Well, that was great. That was very informative, and I think you surprised both Ari and me with one of your answers, so that's always a good thing. We don't want to remain complacent. So good luck with your work, and please let us know when things start rolling out. We'd love to hear hear more and maybe talk to you again after you've talked to a big group.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to taking the full curriculum out for a spin, so to speak. So I've done pieces a few different times, and we're ready to give the whole thing a shot. But thank you to you guys for hosting me, and I think the conversation was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed that kind of discussion.
Great.
Well, thanks, Jeff. We'll do it again. We appreciate you coming on, and we'll talk to you soon. Everyone, thanks for watching or listening, and we'll be back next time.